Hello, everyone. Normally, this is pretty much the football report, but I would be remiss if I didn't start off with a little World Series chat. A couple of Yankees fans were thrown out of the stadium for reaching down and trying to pry open Mookie Betts of the Dodgers' glove to steal the ball out. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they thought it was a great way to get a souvenir. Maybe they thought that that would magically make it not be an out. I'm not sure. All I know is that the Dodgers are up 3-1. They need one more game to close it out and make my nephew out in Los Angeles very, very, very happy. Now, on to the real sports, meaning football. The Vikings dropped their second game in a row. Don't know what's going on up there, but the first one they lost to the Lions, so that one's forgivable. This one they lost to the Rams, who, they're always such a surprising team, but nobody expected them to beat the Vikings, especially not by 10 points, 30-20. The Vikings just didn't show up for the game. The Packers took on Jacksonville, which has been everyone's whipping boy most of the season. But they barely beat them, 30-27. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this was Jacksonville's second game in London. And if you remember last week, I talked about Jacksonville getting 2 games in London and how they're very dangerous on that second game, as the Bills found out last year. And unfortunately for the Packers, Jordan Love was also hurt. His status for this week's game is unknown. The Packers would love if he would come back. Sorry, couldn't resist. The Cardinals beat the Dolphins by a fin width. I couldn't resist that one. 28-27, spoiling Tua Tagovailoa's return. The Dolphins have to play the Bills this upcoming weekend. I know the Bills don't wish Tua any ill, but I do believe Tua is going to have a harder time than he did with the Cardinals. The Jets lost to the Patriots 25-22. And one has to think at this point that Aaron Sanders is seriously reconsidering retirement. He's getting beat up by every team they play. He spends a lot of time with his helmet off doing that famous Aaron Rodgers staring up into the sky look. I don't know if he's expecting, angels to come down and protect him at the line, but I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see. The Browns beat the Ravens. Now, if half the Ravens were out sick, I could see that happening, but they had more or less their full roster, and yet the Browns rose up righteous and beat them. But all was not well in Ohio. The Eagles performed as they were expected to, beating the Bengals, as we used to when I was an Oilers fan, when the Oilers still existed, used to call them the Bungles, 37-17, as it should be. The Texans survived the Colts 23-20. Some bad news there. Former Bill Stephon Diggs is now out for the season with an ACL or MCL, one of those CL injuries. He's done for the year. Stephon, from a Bills fan, again, wish you no ill. Hope you come out of this well. The Lions went into Tennessee and stomped the Titans, who are a slightly more northerly version of the Jaguars. This was really kind of a laugher. It's 52-14, and the Lions really could have called up the practice squad by midway through the third quarter and just let them play, or maybe some people out of the stands. I'm just not sure. They put forth more effort than was required in this game. The Falcons beat the Bucks, a game probably not a whole lot of people cared about. The NFC South, again, is a race to the bottom. At the bottom, of course, being the Panthers. But the Falcons did win 31-26. there's always some good pushing and shoving in that game. The teams are geographically close together, and they have a pretty decent rivalry. The Saints, again, jockeying with the Panthers for the bottom of the NFC South, lost 26-8 to the Chargers, who are unexpectedly playing fairly well this season. The Bills. I always love it when we get to the Bills. I'm not going to annoy you with my nobody circles the wagons. Oh, wait, I just did. Okay. They didn't give us heartburn through the first half and go into the locker room at the half tied or even behind. They came out and stomped the Seahawks pretty much start to finish, closing it out 31-10. Unfortunately, Josh Allen did manage to throw his first interception in 300 some odd passes, but that was really the only blemish on a really sterling performance. The Bills continue to get amazing production from rookie players that nobody really thought was going to do anything. Nobody really thought was going to do anything this year. The Commanders. Okay, where did this Commanders team come from? Isn't everybody used to the Commanders sucking? But they beat the Bears 18-15. And if you have been living under a rock, you haven't seen the video of this insane Hail Mary pass where there's a huge mob of humanity about 3 or 4 yards in front of the Bears goal line. And I don't know who you call it. Anyway, but all the Bears players, instead of doing what they were supposed to do and slap the ball down, boinked it up in the air. And so a Bears receiver standing by himself in the end zone caught it, and the game was over. Truly a heartbreaking, crushing defeat for the Bears. But guys, you did it to yourself. The Chiefs, anybody remember when the Chiefs used to just beat the crap out of everybody? It's not happening this year. They played the Raiders. They were ridiculous favorites in this game, and they beat them by 7 points, which for any other team would be a fairly convincing, satisfactory win. But this is the Chiefs. This is, Mahomes and Kelsey and everything else. And I don't know if Taylor Swift is distracting the whole team now, but they're just, let's just say I'm really looking forward to them playing the Bills. And by the way, I mentioned the Panthers earlier. They lost to the Broncos. The score doesn't really matter. We knew they were going to lose. The Cowboys, they continue to stumble. I think at this point, Jerry Jones is just probably hoarse all week from screaming. They lost to the Niners 30-24. And I want to remind everybody that the Niners are doing all this winning without 2/3 of their team. McCaffrey is supposed to be back in a couple of weeks. I think after their bye week, they've got half the other team on stretchers, but they're all coming back. And keep your eye on the Niners come playoff time. I wouldn't at all be surprised to see them in the NFC Championship. And finally, for this week, the Steelers, a team that I don't hate, beat the Giants, a team that I do hate, except for the fact that they beat the Patriots in a Super Bowl, in a game that really highlighted how hapless the Giants are. Every time they had an opportunity, they squandered it. And Mike Tomlin, favorite coach in the NFL, the guy's got a litany of facial expressions on the sidelines, but I actually did see him smile at one point during the game. Gotta love him. So that's it for this week's NFL wrap-up and maybe a little World Series. Next week, more football. We'll talk about the end of the baseball season. Probably not any basketball. Maybe a little hockey if the Sabres win. But everybody be good. See you next week.